Hello everyone, this is English Conversation 1. This week, this is the third video in the series. We're looking at Unit 3 from A Step Forward in Conversation. Unit 3 is called Shopping, and in this unit we're going to see how we use to and enough. You can see in the warm-up sample conversation, giving reasons using to. The guy asks, "Can you lift the truck?" She says, "No, I can't. Trucks are too heavy." Notice to is T-O-O. First conversation. Two people are talking to a real estate agent, and they want to buy a house. Let's listen first.
Track 7.
We'd like to buy a house.
How about this one? It has a large living room and 6 bedrooms. It's only $1 million.
It's too big and too expensive.
Well, how about this one? It's $80,000.
That's too cheap. What's wrong with it?
It's haunted. Haunted? Don't worry too much. The ghosts are very friendly.
Okay, so Paula says, "We'd like to buy a house." The agent has a couple of houses to show them. The first one, he says, how about this one? It has a large living room and 6 bedrooms. It's only $1 million. 6 bedrooms, that's a lot of bedrooms. So that tells us it's a big house. Paula says, "It's too big and too expensive." Too big. Bigger than they want, or bigger than they need. And too expensive. More money than they want to pay. So the agent says, "Well, how about this one? It's $80,000. Then Paula responds, "That's too cheap. What's wrong with it?" Nowadays, if we see a house and the house's price is $80,000, we think that's very cheap. There must be something wrong with it. And the agent says, "It's haunted." "Andy, haunted?" The agent replies, "Don't worry too much." In other words, don't worry more than you need to. The ghosts are very friendly. Okay, let's look at the grammar first. So we see to versus not enough, or enough. To means there's more than what is needed. And not enough means less than is needed, or less than is necessary. So 2 examples. First one, using to. "It's too cold to go swimming today." So it's colder than we want. Not enough. "The water is not warm enough." Okay, so these 2 sentences have basically the same meaning. The first one uses to, cold, and the second one, not warm enough. So too cold means it's colder than we want. Not warm enough means is not as warm as we want. So basically the same meaning. Okay, let's go back. Let's look at the expressions. These are some expressions we use when we're shopping. You may be unfamiliar with some of them. Browse. We use browse when we talk about shopping. Browse in Korea, people say, "I shopping." Just looking. We browse the internet. In other words, we go from page to page to page, but not focusing on anything special. Expensive. More money than I want to pay. Second-hand. Second-hand means somebody owned it before. It's not new. So one person owned it, and then another person owns it. That's second-hand. Rip-off. Rip-off, when we talk about shopping, means you paid too much for something and that product was not worth it. So, for example, if you paid 10,000 won for a surgical mask, that's a rip-off. That's way too much. Brand new means never owned before. So if I say it's brand new, means I'm the first owner. Inexpensive. Well, what is expensive? Expensive, high cost. We see the prefix in. Inexpensive means not expensive. Trendy. Now we see three phrases here. Trendy, in fashion, out of fashion. Sometimes the word trend can be used interchangeably with fashion. So, for example, somebody has blue hair, and we say, that's the trend. Or we might say, it's in fashion. What's the difference? Well, a fashion is always a fashion. In the 1930s, certain clothing styles were fashion. They are still fashion today, but they're not in fashion. So they're still a fashion, but not in fashion right now. Trend refers to something that a lot of people like now, at this point. So I could say, in the 1970s, long hair was the trend. Out of fashion means it's not what people like today. So it's still a fashion. High-end. High-end means very high quality. If you're going to buy a video card for your computer and you're going to pay 50,000 won for it, that's a low-end video card. If you're going to pay 1.5 million won for the video card, that's a high-end video card. Crowded means a lot of people. And finally, receipt. That's the little slip of paper you get after you buy something. When you pay for it, they give you the product and they give you a slip of paper telling you how much it was, how much tax you paid on it, and the total. That's the receipt. Notice it's not pronounced receipt. It's R-E-C-E-I-P-T, but the P is silent. So, receipt. Okay, let's look at the practice. You have to use too much or enough. with each picture. Picture 1, we're talking about the dog. It's supposed to be a guard dog, not doing a very good job. He sleeps too much. So he sleeps more than he should. Number 2, the baby, he doesn't sleep enough. He sleeps less than he should. What about number 3? This is not the son. He eats too much. He eats more than he needs. Picture 4. Oh, where's the food? She doesn't eat enough. Less food than she needs. Number 5. He studies too much. I think if you asked Einstein, he probably wouldn't say he studied too much. And number 6, he doesn't study enough. Studies less than he needs or less than he should. Square root of 16 equals 27? Huh? Partner A says, we should buy a housewarming present. Let's go shopping. A housewarming present is something you buy for somebody when they move into a new house or an apartment. If they have a party, then that's called a housewarming party. Sure, we should check out the new shopping mall. Well, it's not big enough. Let's go to Dongdaemun Market. I think it's too big to look around. So some people might think here in Gumi, for example, Dongha department store is too small. Dongdaemun Market is huge. So some people think it's too big. Okay, let's look at the language builder. Too enough with adjectives, too enough with verbs. The rule is basically the same. Mark's rock band is too loud. So too is placed before the adjective. Emil's bike isn't fast enough. Enough is placed after the adjective. Should note here also, we usually use enough when there's not enough. So it's most commonly seen in the negative form, not enough. We had to remember not enough is what we call a separable phrase. So not fast enough. The adjective is placed between the not and enough. Carmen's dog eats too much. Eat is the verb. So to is placed after the verb. So to before the adjective. The verb to is after the verb. Jinu doesn't, here we see not again, doesn't sleep enough. So the verb is placed between not and enough. So if we have an adjective or a verb with the word enough, the verb is always before enough. If we have an adjective, it's placed after to. And if we have a verb, it's placed before to. And here are 3 examples. I think there, and you see is or are, because you can fill in your own answer here. I think there are too many magazines in my bedroom. If we want to change this to something that is not countable, for example, light, I think there is too much light in my bedroom. I think there aren't jobs in the city enough. This is incorrect. I think there aren't enough jobs. Job is a noun, not an adjective or a verb. There aren't enough jobs in this city. I think I eat too much. So remember this. Don't copy this. This is not correct. Let's listen to Emil and Carmen.
Track 8.
You're a fantastic tennis player.
I don't think so. My backhand isn't good enough, and my serve isn't powerful enough.
You don't practice enough. You should play more often.
I'm too busy. I have to work and do all the housework too.
Manuel doesn't help you enough.
I know.
You're a fantastic tennis player. Carmen says, I don't think so. My backhand isn't good enough. Not as good as she wants it to be. And my serve isn't powerful enough. Not as much power as she wants. Emil says, you don't practice enough. You should play more often. Carmen says, I'm too busy. I have to work and do all the housework too. Emil replies, Manuel doesn't help you enough. I know. In this section, we listen and we fill in the blanks. She's looking for a present.
Track 9.
I'm looking for a present for my husband.
How about some golf clubs?
No, he's too lazy to play golf.
Why not buy him a jacket?
No, it isn't cold enough yet.
Why don't you give him a computer? Maybe he could write a detective story.
That's a good idea, but computers are too expensive. Do you have a notebook and some pencils?
Sure. Do you want 2B or HB?
Let me think. To be or not to be?
That's a good line. He should put it in his detective story.
I'm looking for a present for my husband. The clerk says, how about some golf clubs? Mrs. Shakespeare, no, he's too lazy to play golf. too lazy. So the clerk says, why not buy him a jacket? And Mrs. Shakespeare, no, it isn't cold enough yet. So the clerk says, why don't you give him a computer? Maybe he could write a detective story. Mrs. Shakespeare says, that's a good idea, but computers are too expensive. More expensive than she wants to pay. Do you have a notebook and some pencils? Clerk, sure. Do you want 2B or HB? Mrs. Shakespeare says, let me think. To be or not to be? The clerk says, that's a good line. He should put it in his detective story. And in case you didn't realize, to be or not to be, that's a very famous line from Shakespeare. The review has some more examples that you can try. That's basically it for Unit 3. This example in A, I just want to point out once more, it's too big. It isn't small enough. Both of these statements basically have the same meaning. It's too big, more big than he wants, more big than he needs. Isn't small enough means it's too big. If it was the car, $75,000, that's about 2,500 mannen. She might say, it's too expensive, or it isn't cheap enough. Okay, so that's Unit 3. And what I'm going to do before I finish is I'm going to show you the homework. For the last homework, some people said they didn't know how to edit the page. These homework files are constructed using Microsoft Word, and each one of these items are in text boxes, and they are editable. So, for example, choose the correct one, too or enough. This car is too old, we cannot go anywhere, or this car is enough old. If you place the cursor, the easiest way is when you click on it, you notice it's a text box. And if you place the cursor, you can so the car is too old. We can't go anywhere. For the matching, Susan is not, Susan is, if you click here, you can add the letter. So Susan is to go out, she is over 90. Susan is too old. So if you choose too old, G, then simply add a G here. Okay, likewise the other ones, if you click here, you can enter, is the cursor blinking. For section E, Dorothy is too young to get dressed herself. You have to rewrite the sentence and use enough. So if she's too young, she's not old enough. I'm not sure if you can edit. If you go to the LMS site and you click on the file, it will open. I think you can just edit it there. Maybe then you have to save it. If not, some people sent me the Word file. If you send me your homework by email, make sure you tell me your student ID number and your class time. Some people sent me homework and they didn't tell me which class they were in. I have almost 100 students. I need to know which class you're in. Thank you, and hopefully see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.